The early morning air in the forest was cool and fresh. Sunlight touched the tops of the tall pine trees, and a soft breeze carried the smell of damp earth. The small wooden cabin stood quietly at the edge of the woods, its chimney letting out a thin line of smoke. Paul sat at the wooden table inside, sipping hot tea. Across from him, his wife Anna smiled as she spread honey on warm bread. This was their favorite time of day, when everything felt peaceful and far away from the world. Paul had worked many years in the city before deciding to move here. Together, he and Anna built this cabin with their own hands, cutting wood, lifting stones, and painting walls. It was not large or fancy, but it was their dream home. The cabin stood outside the town limits, away from strict rules and noisy streets. To Paul and Anna, it was perfect. That morning, however, their peace was broken. A sudden loud honk shattered the silence. Paul's hand paused on his cup, and Anna turned her head toward the window. From the dirt road outside came the sound of tires grinding to a stop. Dust rose in the air as a shiny black SUV pulled up roughly in front of the cabin. Paul frowned. Who would come here this early? Anna's face darkened as she saw the car door open. It's her again. Out stepped Karen, the woman who led the homeowners association in town. She was known everywhere for her sharp eyes and sharper tongue. Though the cabin was far beyond her official area, Karen always found reasons to drive up here and make trouble. She believed she had authority over everything, whether people liked it or not. She wore a neat blue suit and carried a heavy leather bag along with a clipboard. Her heels clicked on the wooden porch as she marched forward like a soldier. Before Paul could reach the door, Karen had already pushed it open with force. Her voice filled the cabin before either of them could speak. This place is in violation of so many regulations I don't know where to begin. I warned you before, and now I will make sure every inch of this cabin is inspected. You cannot ignore the rules forever. Paul rose to his feet, his eyes narrowing. Karen, this cabin is not part of your neighborhood. You have no authority here. You cannot just storm in like this. But Karen did not listen. She walked straight into the living room, scanning every corner as if hunting for mistakes. Her pen scratched across the paper on her clipboard. She pointed at the ceiling beams and muttered about structural code. She glanced at the stone fireplace and declared it unsafe. She even sneered at the paint on the walls, saying the shade was not allowed. Anna watched her quietly, though her face showed no fear. She knew Karen loved to shout and make people nervous. Paul tried to keep his voice calm, but it was clear that Karen had no intention of stopping. She grew louder with every word, her finger jabbing at the windows, the door frame, the floor. This place will not stand, Karen said sharply. I will file a complaint with the county. You cannot hide from the law. I'll have the building board out here tomorrow. Paul clenched his jaw, but before he could speak, Anna moved toward the desk in the corner. She opened the top drawer slowly and reached inside. Karen noticed her and raised an eyebrow. What are you doing now? Trying to hide some more violations. Anna said nothing. She pulled out a folded sheet of paper, thick and stamped with an official seal. She unfolded it neatly, then turned and held it up for Karen to see. Her voice was steady and calm as she spoke. This is the warrant. For the first time since entering, Karen froze. Her hand holding the pen went still, her mouth half open. The words she had prepared to shout were lost. Her eyes locked on the paper in Anna's hand, and her face drained of color. The cabin was quiet again, except for the soft crackle of the fire in the stone fireplace. Paul stood tall beside his wife, watching Karen's sudden silence. She had come in screaming and full of anger, but now she looked as if her breath had been stolen. Karen's eyes stayed fixed on the paper in Anna's hand. The bright stamp at the bottom and the thick black letters at the top seemed to weigh down her voice. For once, she did not rush forward or point out another flaw. Instead, she stood frozen in the middle of the cabin as if her shoes were nailed to the wooden floor. Paul crossed his arms and watched her carefully. He had seen Karen barge into people's homes before, always certain of her power. Yet now, her confidence slipped away piece by piece. Anna spoke clearly, her tone calm but strong. This warrant was signed last month by the county judge. It confirms that this cabin is not under the control of your association. You have no authority here. The words struck like a hammer. Karen's mouth opened as if she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Her pen, which had scribbled furiously moments earlier, now hung limp in her hand. She stared at the paper again, her face turning pale. Paul stepped forward. You came into our home without permission. You shouted at us, accused us, and acted as if we were your servants. But this paper proves the truth. You have no claim here. Not one. The silence stretched long, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock on the cabin wall. The fire in the fireplace popped gently, making the room feel warmer, though the air between the three of them was heavy. At last, Karen took a sharp breath. Her voice came out softer than before, though still edged with pride. Where did you get that? Who signed it? This cannot be right. Anna did not flinch. She held the paper closer so Karen could read. The black letters spelled out every detail, and at the bottom was the clear signature of Judge Thompson. The county seal shone bright under the morning light. You see it yourself, Anna said. This home is registered as independent property, outside your neighborhood rules. We had it confirmed when we built it. Your association has no hold here. Karen's lips trembled, but her pride would not let her back down so easily. Perhaps this is a mistake, she said quickly. Perhaps the judge did not know all the facts. I will make a call. I will check this myself. Paul gave a short laugh, though it carried no humor. Make all the calls you want. But until the law changes, this paper protects us. You have no reason to be here. You should leave. For a moment, Karen looked as if she might continue fighting. Her eyes darted between Paul and Anna, then back to the paper. Her hands tightened around her clipboard. But the truth was clear, and she knew it. No amount of shouting could erase the seal at the bottom of that page. The strong woman who had marched into the cabin like a storm now seemed smaller. Her voice lost its thunder. She stepped back toward the door slowly, her heels clicking softer than before. She muttered under her breath, words neither Paul nor Anna cared to understand. As she reached the porch, she turned once more. Her eyes, sharp with frustration, met Anna's calm gaze. This is not over, Karen whispered. Then she turned quickly, her blue suit flashing in the sunlight as she hurried to her car. The sound of the SUV engine broke the quiet. Gravel scattered as the tires spun, carrying her away down the dirt road. The dust rose again and slowly settled back on the trees and grass. Inside the cabin, Paul let out a long breath. At last, he said, lowering his arms. I thought she would never stop. Anna carefully folded the warrant and placed it back into the drawer. Her movements were steady, but her eyes carried a shadow of worry. She will not give up so easily. Karen is the kind of person who always finds another way. Paul nodded. Then we must be ready. We built this place with our own hands. No one will take it from us. They sat back down at the table, but the taste of tea and bread was no longer the same. The morning peace had been shaken. Both of them knew Karen's retreat was not the end, only the beginning of something larger. Anna looked out the window at the long road disappearing into the trees. Her voice was quiet but firm. She will be back. And next time, she may not come alone. Karen drove back toward the town with a storm raging inside her mind. The judge's seal, the bold letters of the warrant, and Anna's calm voice echoed over and over. She gripped the wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She was not used to being challenged, and she could not stand the thought of losing control. In her eyes, the cabin was more than just a wooden house in the woods. It was a threat to her authority. If Paul and Anna could build something outside her reach, then what would stop others from doing the same? Her power came from fear and rules, and now a piece of paper was tearing that power apart. By the time she reached town, Karen had already formed a plan. She would not give up. She would spread doubt. She would make the people believe that Paul and Anna had broken the law. She parked in front of the cafe on Main Street, where the townsfolk gathered every morning. As she stepped inside, the room quieted. Everyone knew Karen's sharp walk and sharper tongue. She moved straight to the counter, her voice loud enough for all to hear. I just returned from the woods. That couple with the cabin is hiding something. They claim to have a paper, but I do not believe it. I think they are tricking the county. Whispers spread quickly from table to table. Farmers, shopkeepers, and even the postmen turned their heads. Some frowned, others nodded. They all knew Karen loved to control things, but they also knew she had influence. At a corner table, an old man named George spoke up. His voice was slow but steady. I heard that cabin was built fair and square. Paul worked hard for it. Why would you accuse them? Karen turned sharply. Because I know when something is wrong. That cabin breaks every rule. If we let it stand, what will happen next? People will start ignoring the association. Our town will fall apart. Her words stirred unease. Some people agreed, some stayed silent, and some looked doubtful. Karen knew she had planted the seed. That was all she needed for now. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Paul worked outside repairing a section of the wooden fence. His hands were rough from years of labor, but his movements were steady. Anna brought him a jug of water and stood beside him, watching the forest road. She will try again, Anna said quietly. Paul wiped the sweat from his brow. Let her. We have the law on our side. Anna shook her head. The law may be clear, but people are not always clear. Karen knows how to twist words. She will try to turn the town against us. Paul looked at his wife with steady eyes. Then we will stand firm. This home is ours. We built it with honesty. Truth will protect us. That night, as the sun sank behind the trees, a knock came at the cabin door. Paul opened it to find George, the old man from the cafe. His gray beard moved as he spoke slowly. I thought you should know. Karen is talking in town. She says your papers are false. Some believe her, some do not, but her words are spreading. Anna invited him inside, and they sat around the fire. George leaned forward. I have lived here many years. I know her ways. She will not stop unless someone stronger stands in her path. Be ready, for she will return with more than just words next time. Paul thanked him. We will be ready. After George left, silence filled the cabin again. Anna rested her hand on the drawer where the warrant lay hidden. This paper protects us, but it may not protect us from her tongue. She knows how to stir fear. Paul placed his hand gently over hers. Then we must show the town who we truly are. If we stand tall, her lies will fall. Outside, the forest was quiet, but deep in town, Karen's voice was rising louder. She was already gathering people to her side, and her eyes burned with determination. She had lost the first battle, but in her mind, the war was only beginning. Karen woke the next morning with a single thought burning in her mind. The warrant. That paper had stopped her once, but she refused to let it stop her again. She dressed in her neatest suit, gathered her notes, and drove straight to the county office. The office building stood tall with brick walls and wide steps. Inside, clerks shuffled papers and spoke quietly with visitors. Karen walked in briskly, her heels striking the floor with sharp clicks. Heads turned as she passed, for everyone in the county knew her reputation. She went straight to the reception desk. "I need to speak with Judge Thompson or someone in charge of property records. It is urgent." The young clerk looked up nervously. "The judge is in a meeting, but you can wait." "May I know the matter?" Karen leaned close, lowering her voice but keeping it firm. "A cabin has been built outside the town, and I believe the documents protecting it are false. I want the county to recheck the warrant. If mistakes were made, they must be corrected at once." The clerk nodded and hurried away to fetch someone higher. After a few minutes, a tall man with glasses came forward. His name was Mr. Harris, head of the records department. He greeted Karen politely. "I hear you have concerns. Please explain." Karen straightened her shoulders and spoke as if she were presenting a case in court. She described the cabin, the couple who lived there, and her belief that they were breaking rules. She spoke of danger to the community, unsafe structures, and threats to order. Finally, she demanded, "You must cancel their warrant. It cannot be valid." Mr. Harris listened quietly, his hands folded. When she finished, he opened a file and pulled out a copy of the same paper Anna had shown. He adjusted his glasses. "This document is signed by Judge Thompson himself. It is legal and binding. The property lies outside your association's reach. There is nothing false about it." Karen's face tightened. "Then you must look again. Surely there is some error. No one builds without permission. They cannot be allowed to defy us." Mr. Harris shook his head calmly. "It is not defiance. They followed the county process. They own their land, and the warrant stands." The words struck like a wall she could not climb. For a moment, Karen stood speechless. Then her pride returned. She slammed her hand lightly on the desk. "If the county refuses to act, I will take this to the people. I will not allow lawless cabins to stand while decent citizens follow the rules." Mr. Harris sighed. "You are free to speak as you wish, but the law is clear. Do not mistake personal dislike for legal ground." Karen left the office with anger boiling inside her. She had not won, but she had not given up either. As she stepped onto the street, she saw two townsfolk she knew. She hurried to them and spoke loudly, letting others hear. "The county refuses to see the truth. They are protecting that cabin, but mark my words, it is unsafe. It will bring trouble to us all." The words spread like sparks on dry grass. By the evening, half the town had heard her version of the story. Some believed her, some did not, but whispers grew louder. Back at the cabin, Paul and Anna spent the day repairing the garden fence and stacking wood. Yet their minds were uneasy. George visited again to warn them. She was at the county office today. She left angry and has been speaking to everyone she meets. She is building a storm of words. Anna's eyes darkened. A storm of words can be worse than a storm of rain. People may turn against us even when we have done nothing wrong. Paul placed a hand on her shoulder. We will stand firm. Let her talk. Truth will stand longer than lies. But as the sun set behind the forest, Anna watched the road with quiet worry. She knew Karen's pride would not rest. If words did not break them, Karen would find another weapon. The question was when, and how. For the next several days, the town buzzed with talk about the cabin in the woods. Wherever people gathered, whether at the cafe, the market, or the post office, Karen's voice echoed in their ears. She told anyone who would listen that Paul and Anna were hiding something. She painted pictures of unsafe walls, dangerous fires, and secret plans. Her words stirred unease like wind pushing smoke through a valley. Some townsfolk dismissed her, knowing she often went too far. But others began to wonder. They had not seen the warrant themselves. They had not walked through the cabin. Doubt spread like shadows at dusk. Karen did not stop there. She began holding small meetings in her living room. She invited neighbors, showed them her notes, and repeated her warnings. If that cabin stands, she declared, then anyone can build anywhere without rules. Our town will lose order. We must act before it is too late. One by one, people nodded. A few even promised to join her when the time came. Karen's pride grew. She felt her power returning, not through law, but through fear and persuasion. Meanwhile, Paul and Anna carried on with their daily work. They planted vegetables in their garden, chopped wood for the fireplace, and cared for the cabin like it was part of their family. Yet in their hearts, they felt the weight of the storm brewing. One evening, as Paul sharpened his tools, Anna looked toward the window. Her voice was quiet. Do you hear it? The forest is calm, but beyond the trees, people are restless. The air feels heavy. Paul nodded slowly. Karen is moving her pieces. She may come again, not alone this time. Their fears proved true sooner than expected. On the fourth day after Karen's visit to the county office, a line of cars appeared on the dirt road. Dust rose behind them as they rolled toward the cabin. Paul and Anna stood side by side on the porch, watching as the cars came to a stop. Doors opened, and more than a dozen townsfolk stepped out. Some carried clipboards, some carried cameras, and all carried expressions of judgment. At the front of the group, of course, was Karen. Her suit was crisp, her hair perfectly in place, and her eyes shone with triumph. She lifted her clipboard high as if it were a flag. We are here to inspect this place. The people of the town demand answers. Paul spoke firmly. You have no right to demand anything here. This land is ours, and the county has confirmed it. You should all return home. But Karen raised her voice so the crowd could hear. See how they hide. If they were honest, they would welcome us inside. If they truly had nothing to fear, they would open their doors. Murmurs spread through the group. Some looked unsure, others nodded at Karen's words. Paul felt anger rising, but Anna touched his arm gently. Her calm voice carried across the porch. We have already shown the county our papers. We follow the law. What Karen spreads are only words, not truth. Please ask yourselves why she is so eager to tear down what we built with our own hands. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A farmer at the back cleared his throat. I heard from George that the papers are real. If that is true, then maybe we should not be here. Karen snapped her head toward him, her eyes sharp. Do not be fooled. They are clever, but we must protect our community. If we wait, it may be too late. Before more could be said, the sound of hooves broke the tension. Down the road came George himself, riding his old brown horse. He stopped near the cabin and looked over the group with calm, steady eyes. His voice, though soft, carried weight. I was at the county office yesterday. I asked for the truth. The papers are valid. The judge's seal is real. These people are free to live here. Silence fell. Some townsfolk lowered their heads, ashamed. Others looked uncertain, torn between Karen's fire and George's calm truth. Karen's face hardened. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She could not shout at George the way she shouted at others. His voice carried respect in the town that hers could never fully match. Still, she raised her chin and said coldly, if the law will not act, then the people must. This is not over. She turned sharply and walked back to her car. A few followed her, others stayed behind, confused. The storm she had built was strong, but cracks were showing. On the porch, Paul and Anna stood firm, though their hearts were heavy. They knew Karen's pride would not let her rest. She had already lost twice, yet each defeat only seemed to sharpen her anger. The storm was not over. It was only changing shape. Karen could not sleep that night. She paced her living room, her notes scattered across the table, her mind racing with plans. The county had refused her. George had stood against her in front of the people. Twice now she had been silenced. Yet her pride burned stronger than ever. She told herself that she was fighting for order, but deep down she knew it was her power she wanted to protect. The next morning she took her plan to the mayor. She demanded a town meeting. If the county will not act, she declared, then the people must vote. We cannot allow this cabin to stand as a symbol of defiance. The mayor was a quiet man, tired of Karen's constant complaints, but he also knew she had many followers. To calm the noise, he agreed to a public meeting. The notice spread quickly, and by evening the hall was full. Farmers, shopkeepers, teachers, and children filled the wooden benches. The air buzzed with curiosity and tension. Paul and Anna arrived quietly, taking seats near the front. They felt many eyes on them, some friendly, some suspicious. George sat beside them, his presence steady as always. At the center of the hall stood the mayor's desk. Karen rose first, walking with sharp steps, her papers clutched tightly in her hands. She faced the crowd and lifted her voice so that every corner of the hall could hear. Friends, neighbors, I come before you not for myself but for the safety of our community. A cabin has been built outside our rules, and though they wave papers before us, I say those papers mean nothing. If we allow this, then tomorrow others will build as they please. Our town will lose order, and we will all pay the price. Her words carried fire. Murmurs rose from the crowd. Some nodded, others frowned. Karen held her head high, feeding on the energy of the room. Then the mayor called Paul to speak. He stood slowly, his voice calm but strong. We built our cabin with our own hands. We followed the county's process. The judge himself signed our warrant. We are not breaking the law. We are simply living in peace. He held up a copy of the document for all to see. The official seal shone under the lamplight. This paper is not a trick. It is truth. We are free citizens, and we have the right to live on our land. Anna then stepped forward, her voice softer but filled with steady courage. We do not ask for trouble. We ask only to be left in peace. Karen says we are a danger, but look at us. We tend our garden, we keep our land clean, we harm no one. The danger is not us, but the lies that are spreading. The hall grew quiet. People shifted uneasily, glancing between Karen and the couple. George rose next, his old voice low but clear. I have lived in this town longer than most. I went to the county myself. The papers are real. The law is clear. If we let fear guide us, we will shame ourselves. If we let truth guide us, we will keep our honor. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then voices began to rise, not in anger, but in discussion. Some said the couple was right. Others said Karen was right. The hall became a wave of talk, rising and falling. Finally, the mayor lifted his hand for quiet. This matter is clear to me. The county has spoken. The cabin is lawful. We cannot vote against the law. I declare that Paul and Anna have the right to remain. This meeting is closed. Relief swept through some of the crowd, while others grumbled. Karen's face turned stiff with fury. She had called for this meeting expecting victory, but instead the decision had cut her power down. She gathered her papers quickly and stormed out of the hall without a word. Paul and Anna stayed seated, their hands clasped together. The fight had been long, and though the mayor's words had given them protection, they knew Karen's pride was not finished. Outside the hall, the night was cool and quiet, but they could feel the weight of another storm forming beyond the silence. The night after the town meeting was still and heavy. The forest lay in silence, yet inside the cabin Paul and Anna could not rest. They sat by the fire, the crackle of burning wood their only companion. The mayor's words had given them protection, but both knew Karen's pride would not allow her to stop so easily. Paul spoke quietly. She lost in front of the people. That will wound her pride more than anything. She may try something desperate. Anna looked at the flames, her face calm but her eyes worried. Then we must be steady. Truth is stronger than anger. We cannot let fear rule us. The next morning proved Paul right. As the sun rose, a noise came down the road. Not cars this time, but voices. A group of people marched toward the cabin, led by Karen herself. She no longer carried just a clipboard. She had a banner in her hand with bold words painted across it, "Protect the town." Behind her were a handful of followers, fewer than before but still loud. They stopped in front of the cabin. Karen raised her banner high and shouted, "We demand this place be torn down." The mayor may speak, the county may stamp papers, but the people's will is greater. We will not be ignored. Paul stepped out onto the porch. His voice was firm but calm. Karen, you do not speak for the people. You speak only for yourself. Look around you. You have gathered a few, but the town is not here. The town already heard the truth. Anna joined him, holding the warrant in her hand. She raised it so all could see. This is the law. This is the truth. We will not bend to lies. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some looked at the paper and lowered their eyes. Others glanced at Karen, waiting for her next command. Before Karen could speak again, the sound of more footsteps came from behind. Down the road walked George, followed by several townsfolk who had come not with anger but with quiet determination. They carried no banners, no clipboards, only steady faces. George raised his voice. Enough. We are tired of this. The law is clear. The mayor has spoken. The county has spoken. This cabin belongs to Paul and Anna. Karen, your fight is not for the town. It is only for your pride. The words struck deep. Karen's face turned red, her hands trembling around the banner. She shouted back, but her voice cracked. I fight for order. Without rules, there is chaos. Without control, there is ruin. George shook his head. Order without truth is not order. It is only fear. And fear cannot lead us. The group behind Karen began to falter. One by one, people lowered their banners, stepping back. Some even walked over to stand with George. Karen looked around in disbelief as her support slipped away. Paul stepped forward, his voice steady. Karen, this is your choice now. You can keep fighting shadows, or you can accept the truth. The cabin is ours. The people know it. The law knows it. It is time you let go. For a long moment, Karen stood frozen. Her pride told her to scream, but her heart knew the battle was lost. At last, she dropped the banner. The wood pole struck the dirt with a dull sound. She turned without another word and walked down the road, her figure growing smaller with each step. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a silence of peace, not fear. George placed a hand on Paul's shoulder. It is over now. She will not return. Pride may roar, but truth always stands longer. Anna folded the warrant carefully and tucked it back into her pocket. She looked at Paul and smiled faintly. The cabin stands, and so do we. The townsfolk who had gathered offered nods of respect before leaving. Soon only Paul, Anna, and George remained. The forest seemed to breathe again, calm and free. That evening, Paul and Anna sat on the porch as the sun sank behind the trees. The air was cool, the sky painted in soft colors. For the first time in many days, their hearts felt light. The storm had passed. Their cabin stood strong, not just with wood and stone, but with truth and courage. Paul reached for Anna's hand. No matter what comes, this place will always be ours. Anna squeezed his hand gently. And no one can take that away. The forest grew quiet around them, but it was no longer the quiet of fear. It was the quiet of peace, earned through patience, courage, and truth. The cabin stood tall in the fading light, a symbol not just of a home, but of standing firm against false pride.